I have cooked for the Hallworth Reach outpost for 11 years, and in all that time the only thing on this moon that never changed was the bay doors. They sit at the end of the North Trench, cut into the rock like something had carved a mouth into the mountain, and then thought better of it. 60 years before I ever set foot here, the first survey crew found them already sealed, already old, already refusing everything anybody threw at them. Drills broke, charges scorched the surface, and left it clean underneath, like the metal had simply declined to notice. 3 separate research teams tried 3 separate decades of code breaking on the lock glyphs ringing the frame, and all 3 left with nothing but budget reports and a healthy respect for whoever built the thing. By the time I arrived, the doors were less a mystery than a piece of furniture, something you walked past on the way to the mess hall, something you stopped looking at. I fed the night shift. That was the job. 11 years of trays and thermoses, and the long walk down the North Trench at 0200 hours, because the surveyors on graveyard rotation still needed to eat, even if nobody remembered why the outpost existed anymore. Most of them had stopped caring about the doors years before I signed on. There was a running joke that the mountain was the only honest thing on the moon. It had made one promise, that it would not open, and it had kept that promise longer than any contract the company signed with us. New hires asked about the scorch marks their first week, got the standard answer, and stopped asking by their second month, same as everyone else. That was the shape of the place. A mystery worn down into background noise. I liked the walk, if I'm honest. Quiet out there, just me, the cart, and the low hum of the trench lights, and I'd sing to fill the space the way I always had. An old work chant my grandmother taught me before I could properly talk. She called it a shipwright's song, said it came down through her side of the family from men who worked docks nobody could name anymore. She used to hum it over the stove while she cooked, and I picked it up the way children do, without asking what it meant. 6 notes, low and even, meant to be hummed while your hands were busy with something else. I never thought about it. It was just a thing my mouth did while I pushed a cart. That night, the night everything changed, I was humming it under the doors themselves, because the trench narrows there and the cart wheel always sticks on the seam in the floor, and something about working the wheel loose brought the tune up out of me without asking permission. The glyphs lit up cyan, not the whole ring at once. One by one, in the order I was humming the notes, like the wall was listening and checking my work against something it remembered. I stopped singing out of pure animal instinct, and the glyphs stopped too, holding their light, waiting. It took me a long, foolish moment to understand what that meant. Then I understood, and I started humming again, slower this time, on purpose, watching each mark answer me down the line. By the 4th note, 3 of the night surveyors were behind me, with their flashlights forgotten in their hands. By the 6th, the whole trench was full of people who'd come running from the mess hall and the dorms in whatever they'd been wearing, because the ground under the bay doors had begun, very faintly, to hum back. The doors didn't blow open. They didn't crack like a wound. They breathed apart, slow, deliberate, a groan of old metal remembering how to move, dust sighing out of the seam in a long exhale that had been held for 6 decades. Cold air rolled over us, and underneath the cold was a light, pale blue, steady, coming from somewhere deep inside. Nobody spoke. I remember that clearly. 60 engineers and surveyors and a cook standing in a mountain trench at 2 in the morning, and not one of us said a single word, because there are moments that feel like they'd break if you put sound on them. I went in first. I don't know why. Maybe because my feet had started moving, before my sense caught up, or maybe because some part of me already understood, the way you understand a room is yours before you've seen the furniture. The hall inside was larger than the mess hall, the barracks, and half the outpost combined, cut clean into living rock and lined on both sides with alcoves. In each alcove stood a figure, armored, still, silvered with frost that was already beginning to smoke away in the warmer air. Dozens of them, maybe more, further back than the light reached. Not statues. I knew that the way you know a held breath from an empty room. Waiting has a weight to it. even when nothing is moving. The nearest figure's eyes lit first, not opening, exactly, more like a lamp finding its filament, a soft cyan glow behind a visor of dark, weathered material. Frost cracked and fell from its shoulders in a small, quiet avalanche. It stepped down from the alcove onto the stone floor, and the sound of that single footfall was the loudest thing I had ever heard. It did not look at the surveyors. It did not look at the flashlights or the recorders someone had already, madly, thought to bring. It looked at me, and it went down on one knee, armor grinding against rock, and bowed its head the way you bow to someone whose rank outranks the reason you're kneeling. "Warden Kin," it said. Its voice came out low, worn smooth like a stone handled for 1,000 years. "You've come home." I didn't understand the words so much as I understood the shape of what they were doing to the room. Behind the kneeling one, alcove after alcove was lighting, frost falling, armored shapes stepping down in long unhurried rows, and every one of them turned toward me and knelt in the same silence, until the whole hall was full of bowed heads, and I was the only person standing. Someone behind me, I think it was the outpost director, though I couldn't tell you for certain, my ears were roaring, asked what the Warden Kin meant, why it had said it to me, a cook, a nobody who fixed cartwheels and hummed to himself in empty trenches. The kneeling one answered without lifting its head, as if the question had been waiting inside it for 60 years too. "The gate does not open for rank," it said. "It opens for blood, and blood remembers itself only in what it carries, without knowing it carries it. Your line kept the call as a lullaby, a work song, a thing hummed over dishes and cartwheels, generation on generation, long after the meaning was lost. We did not expect to hear it again. We hoped." My grandmother's 6 notes. A shipwright song, she'd called it, from men who worked docks nobody could name. I understood then that she hadn't known either, that somewhere far enough back to be myth, someone in my family had been given a duty too large to explain to a child, and had done the only thing left to do, hidden it inside something ordinary enough to survive. A tune, a habit, a thing hummed while your hands were busy elsewhere. I asked, because someone had to, what it was we were supposed to be keeping. The warden lifted its head, and for the first time I saw the eyes behind the visor light, old, patient, terribly gentle for something built for war. "That is the next question," it said. "Not tonight's." Tonight's question, it seemed, had already been answered, standing in stone and frost and cyan light all around me, kneeling because a cook had walked down a trench at 2 in the morning, doing nothing more remarkable than what his grandmother taught him. They don't call me Warden Kin around the outpost. Not yet. Not to my face. Mostly they still call me Dane, and hand me their trays same as always, though I notice their eyes go to the North Trench a little longer than they used to. The company sent people out within the week, men in clean uniforms with questions I didn't have answers for, and I watched the wardens stand in their alcoves and say nothing to any of them, patient as stone. That first week, the only voice that Hall answered to was mine, and I have carried that knowledge carefully since. The way you carry something you're not yet sure you're strong enough to hold. Some nights, when I walk the doors alone with the cart and the low hum of the trench lights, I catch myself humming the 6 notes anyway, out of old habit, and somewhere in the dark behind that stone, I know now, something is listening, and something is glad. I think of my grandmother at her stove, humming a tune she never explained, keeping a promise she didn't know she was keeping, carrying 6 notes through decades of ordinary evenings, never once suspecting a mountain on a moon she'd never see was still listening for her to come home. I never asked to be the last of anything. I only ever wanted to keep the kitchen running and get some sleep before the morning shift needed their breakfast. But duty, I have learned, does not care what you wanted. It only cares what you were carrying, all along, without knowing its weight. I carry it now. I know its weight. And some nights, that is enough to keep a man from sleeping at all.